I'm here with Steve Milton, columnist for the Hamilton Spectator. And Steve, we just finished 3 days of the Ticats' first ever off-season workout program. What were your impressions? Did this have value for the Ticats?
I thought this had tremendous value for the Ticats. And if you're a Ticat fan, you've got to be very encouraged. We won't know till partway through the season what kind of leg this gives them up on the season compared to other teams that didn't take quite so seriously. But I would have to guess it would. The big thing is I think the familiarization with new systems and new coordinators. Everybody knew Kari beforehand, of course, but now they get to know the defensive coordinator as well. We found out a lot about him, and so did the players. There was a lot of bonding. So I think that any of those 18 or 19 first-year players who normally would come into camp with some trepidation and wouldn't feel familiar, they'll be so far ahead now, and they'll compete on a much more level playing field. And for the coaches to be able to identify those players, they'll be able to look for more and deeper things now. You can ask more of new players in training camp, and I think the veteran players too sense some that, well, whoa, look at these young guys. It's more of a level playing field. I better come in ready, and they get a month to sleep with a playbook. I think that's a very big thing. So I think it's a really good thing for Hamilton. I'd like to see, as a sort of a broader view, the league try to make these voluntary things mandatory, if you could. And to do that, they have to find some money for the other teams, because right now the Western teams don't see the value in it, and I don't blame them. And in this league, we have a quality control issue. We have had for some time. It doesn't mean the play isn't equal with each other. I just don't think the play is high enough, particularly in the first half of the season, as high as it could be, and this will help. And I think the league has to find a way to make it more uniform across the league. I mean, Hamilton, as those of you that don't know, was committed to this far more than anybody else. And the Eastern teams were far more committed than the Western teams.
You talked a little bit about new defensive coordinator Corey Chamberlain. What were your first impressions of him this week?
Well, I'll tell you, he really comes at you, doesn't he? He's a full force Gale, and he's a talker. He seems to be a communicator. Every single play's got something to say to the players on, and he's a really good, from what I can see and watching him closely with the defensive backs, at breaking down some technical things. I was watching him work on guys turning, because they're going to play a very tight defensive system here. They're going to play a lot of press zero cover. For the layman, that's man to man, and chances are you could get beat on the first move. So how you react to that is very important. So I watched him instructing guys to turn their head first, because if you turn with your shoulder first, like most of them were doing, you lose. I mean, it might be a tenth of a second, but it's huge. And the way you get your feet moving as you make the turn. I think he's going to play aggressively. I think Marcel Belfait has been frustrated by both the offense and the defensive pass years. It's part of the reason, as you've written, that we have new defensive coordinators in town. So the aggressiveness, he fits right in there. They're coming into this thing full-blown aggressive. They're trying things like every play they're supposed to strip the ball, not at the expense of making the tackle first, but you can see it. And of course, you don't make the tackle in practices, right? They don't hit hard. So if you can get used to stripping there, at the same time, that forces the offense, which, one of the biggest problems on this team last year was offensive drop balls, and not last year, the last 3 or 4 years. So that'll make the offense sharper in plays too, and they're going to keep stats of that. That's partly Corey, but that's also the head coach. He's going to keep stats every day. The coaching staff's going to go over and say, this guy retained the ball under pressure as a receiver. This guy dropped it. And they're going to, that could cost you a job or enhance your job. These are the little subtle things. And I think once you've built a base, which the Ticats have spent the last 2 or 3 years building, now you can start moving towards stuff like this, like a little more fine tuning. But the overall impression is aggressive, aggressive, aggressive.
Make sure you read the Hamilton Spectator for all your Ticat news, and check out the Scratching Post blog. For the Hamilton Spectator, I'm Drew Edwards.